The theme for today will be an opportunity to reflect on is learning from mistakes. Also, I understand that English is not the first language of everybody here, so I'll try and speak in a way which is quite clear and not too complicated, but there'll be time for questions and answers if there's anything that I say that is not so easy to follow. I think, as I said, I'm very happy to see how things are progressing here, and one of the factors of progress, or one of the essential elements of progress, is learning from our mistakes. In Buddhism, as in most religious forms, and in life in general, but in Buddhism in particular, we can be very idealistic. We have ideals, like a Buddha image. The Buddha image sits there perfectly still, all day, all night, every day. Right? The perfect meditation posture, serene, peaceful, awake. That's the symbol, all the time. But that this is an ideal, and we need ideals, but we have to remember that that's not the whole story. We have an ideal, something as an example, like the Praputarup, the Buddha image. It represents that quality of peaceful, awakened stillness and serenity. But the Buddha image doesn't get sore knees. It doesn't need to breathe. It doesn't need to eat. And even the Buddha himself needed to breathe. He needed to eat. He lived in the human world. He had a heart that was beating. He had lungs that breathed in and breathed out. So when we are, say, trying to live a good life, we're trying to live according to Buddhist principles. We're trying to, do the best we can with our life. We have to remember that we as human beings can't fulfill the ideal. Just like if we wanted to be like the Buddha Rupa all the time, we would fail. We have to move. We need to eat. We need to breathe. We are alive. We are living beings. So we can compare ourselves to the ideal all the time. I should be more kind. I should be more patient. I should be more wise. I should have a better curriculum. I should have more compassionate, wise, caring teachers. I should be able to help the children to understand a lot better. I should be. I'm sure we all have our own list of all the things that we should be, and this might be a bit more of a problem in the West than in the East, but this is an international school. So, and it's a kind of international culture that we are a part of nowadays. We all influence each other a lot, so I suspect that there's a lot of this same kind of should be that's here in Thai society as it is in the West. There's a famous poet, an American poet called T.S. Eliot, and in one of his poems called The Hollow Men, there's this a line that says, "Between the idea and the fact, there falls the shadow." Between the idea and the fact, there falls the shadow. So between the idea, the ideal of the Buddha image, and the fact of being a living, breathing human being, there's the shadow. There's the ordinary, conditions of our life, our mind. It can't meet the ideal. We can never be that perfect. We can never be that pure, or that, 100% positive qualities. And so if we attach to that ideal, then we're always going to be falling short. We're always going to be focusing on what's wrong with us. I'm not good enough, I'm not wise enough, I'm not kind enough. But the point of an ideal is to give us a direction, and it's giving us an example. So it shows us the best direction, the best qualities to aim for, but it's most useful when the ideal helps us to recognize our mistakes, recognize where we get things wrong, and then to encourage us to learn from that. So it's if we take an ideal and we grasp it wrongly, like I should be the perfect mother, I should be the perfect monk, I should be the perfect father, the perfect teacher, then if we grasp that wrongly, we make ourselves feel guilty, we make ourselves feel bad, and we create negative self-view, self-criticism. So we can end up making more suffering for ourselves. So this is, I would say, the wrong grasping of an ideal. If we always compare ourselves to the Arahants, to the Buddha, then we're always going to be imperfect. So if that then creates a feeling within us of, I'm no good, I'm really awful, I'm a terrible person, I should be punished, then that ideal just creates more suffering. So that's a wrong use of an ideal. But the right use, or the skillful use of an ideal, is to recognize, well, I was a bit angry there, or I was a bit lazy, or I was a bit hard-hearted, I didn't have karuna, I didn't have metta, but at least I can recognize that. The Buddha or the Arahants, they would always have a lot of metta, they would always have a lot of karuna, compassion, they'd have loving kindness, they would always be wise. Well, I can at least recognize I wasn't very compassionate then, I wasn't very kind then, I wasn't very wise. So the ideal helps us to recognize where our mistakes are, and then we can do something about it. One of the very often repeated phrases that you get in the Buddha's teachings is where some monk or some nun has done something really stupid, they've behaved in a really crazy way, or they've had a bright idea that then they followed, and but then it turned out to be really hurtful or destructive or offensive, and so then that person would be brought to the Buddha. So there was one monk who thought it would be a good. He was trying to train the novices, the samanen, and the samanens weren't obeying him. So one samanen, he cut his ears off. So then I guess he thought that was a suitable punishment, and to get his attention. And the Buddha said, you cut his ears off? No. That this is an offense. This is absolutely not to be done. That's totally stupid. This is offensive behavior. So then the monk, realizing, that was because I was an executioner before I became a monk, I took that as an ordinary thing to do. Sorry about that. I was just following an old habit there, and I will. I realize now that was really crazy, and so please forgive me, and I'll try to be better in the future. And so then the Buddha said, and this is good, because to recognize our mistakes as such, and to endeavor to do better in the future, this is called development, this is called bhavana, this is called what helps us to improve in the Buddhasasana, in the Buddhist religion. So that's a very simple principle, to recognize our mistakes as being mistakes. You're not pretending, well, it doesn't really matter, it was only a novice. He deserved it, or that not kind of punishing ourselves. Oh, I'm terrible, I shouldn't have done that, I don't deserve to be a monk, I should be punished, I should leave the country. That's taking it too far in the other direction. But to recognize our mistakes as being mistakes, and then to use that as a motivation to do better in the future, This is what is called development. That's how we improve, and this is what the Buddha encouraged. So, as a simple principle of how to handle mistakes or making stupid choices. I mean, I use a deliberately ridiculous example just to get people's attention. But it's one of the most extreme events in our discipline. But it's also, it indicates the kind of stupid things that we can do. You know, that even if it's just something very mild, like losing your temper with getting angry with your child, or trying to cheat on your taxes, or trying to get the teachers to run the classes the way that you think they should be running them, because you know you're right and they're wrong. Yeah, so you to recognize where we've made a mistake, and to see, well, yeah, the way I was trying to do that, or the way that I did that, that was unhelpful, it was unskillful. So you're recognizing the painfulness of having made a mistake, and using that painfulness to wake up and to do things better in the future. That's how we develop. We are not ideals. We are not like a Buddha Rupa. We have families, we have bodies, we have minds, we have personalities. We think, we breathe, we feel. So, because of that, we're all going to make mistakes. That's part of the deal. Nobody gets everything right all the time. Even the Buddha, if you read the scriptures, there are times where the Buddha did things or said things that people got upset with, and that they said, please don't do that. That's really annoying, or it goes against the culture, or please don't allow that. Don't do that in the future. And the Buddha himself said, okay. There was a few times where he said, yes, I accept that, and we'll establish that as a rule from now on. So even the Buddha recognized that he made mistakes, or he did things that could be upsetting or hurtful to other people. He didn't take into account the full range of perceptions, like when he gave his son Rahula the novice precepts, when the Buddha went back to his hometown Kapilavatthu after his enlightenment, and his little son Rahula, at 7 years old, came out to greet him, and his mother, Princess Yashodhara, said, Rahula, please ask your father for your inheritance. And so Rahula said, dear monk, my mother says I should ask you for my inheritance, what you can give me. And the Buddha thought about it and said, okay, well, I'll give you the precepts of a novice. That was what he could offer him as his great richness. So Rahula became a novice, became the first samanen, and then after that, the King Suddhodana, the Buddha's father, got quite upset, and so because he had become quite fond of the boy, and even though the Buddha was Rahula's father, King Suddhodana, the grandfather, kind of claimed rights over the child. So he said to the Buddha, our love for our children, it cuts through the skin and reaches the flesh. It cuts through the flesh and reaches the bone. It cuts through the bone and reaches the marrow of the bone. And then it sticks there. It lodges there. Say, it would be good if you didn't give children the precepts, or didn't give young people the precepts without asking permission of their parents or their guardians. So the Buddha said, okay, from now on, that was then a part of the procedure. They would always ask for permission from the parents. So even today, when you become a monk or a nun, you have making mistakes, doing things that are, say, out of balance or upsetting or hurtful, then this brings into play what is called hiri ottappa. I don't have too much of a Pali lesson, but hiri and ottappa, these are probably talked about in the school in various different ways, but these are called the guardians of the world, the lokapala. So hiri and ottappa, they're described in slightly different ways, different books, different resources. But essentially there are two kinds of, say, sense of honor and responsibility, and they're the ways that, say, guide our actions in relationship to other people and in relationship to the world. So hiri is the sense of our own responsibility, our own sense of honor. So that if I tell a lie, or if I say do something which is unkind, or is selfish, then that pain that I feel in my heart, that that wasn't really true, or that wasn't very kind, or that didn't really belong to me, that painfulness in the heart is hiri, that sense of, you can say, moral responsibility, a sense of honor, your conscience, and sometimes it's translated as a sense of shame, but I feel it's more helpful to use the term like honor or responsibility, because it's a painful feeling, but it's a very useful pain. It helps us to notice that wasn't quite true, that wasn't very kind, that wasn't very sensitive, and so that that is a painful feeling, but it's exactly that which helps us to recognize, okay, how can I do things better, or how can I repair that harm that I've just done. Now when we take hold of that hiri, and then we grasp at it, we make it into we build a sense of self, of atta, around that. Then that we get the I'm no good, I'm a terrible person, I'm really awful, I'm a liar, I'm a cheat, I'm really selfish, I'm really lazy, or that I am awful, I am bad, I'm no good, or what one of our monks used to say is the I'm no good mantra. I'm no good, I'm no good, I'm no good, I'm no good. And in the West, this is very, very common. I don't know if it's entering Thai culture a bit more, but in Western conditioning, this is very, very strong. Particularly people out of a Catholic background or a Jewish background. They have the kind of industrial strength, guilt. I have a Jewish grandfather and a Catholic grandmother, and then the other half of my family is Church of England, so I get all, and Buddhists, so I get the whole array. But so that kind of I'm no good, and so when we don't like to think about things we get wrong because it's painful, and we take that feeling and we make a psychological problem out of it. We create guilt and self-hatred. And for many people, particularly in the West, that's a big issue. Many years ago, Lumpur Panyananta, he passed away a few years ago, but he was the abbot of Wat Cholapratan in Nonthaburi, and a long-time associate of Lumpur Buddha Thad. He was giving a talk at Amaravati in England, the monastery where I am, and somebody asked a question to Lumpur. So, Lumpur, what do you do about what do you do about self-hatred? Feeling guilty and hating yourself. And so Lumpur looked a little bit puzzled, and Ajahn Pasano was translating for him. And so Lumpur sort of leaned over and said, so what does he mean by self-hatred? What's he talking about? Ajahn Pasano tried to explain the sort of Judeo-Christian program. And say, it's very common for Western people just to hate themselves all the time, for no real reason. And so then Lumpur looked kind of puzzled, like, really? Or the Thai version of really? And so anyway, after they conferred for a few minutes, then Lumpur sat up and said, it's a minor mental irritation, ignore it and it'll go away. And exactly, half the hall just kind of cracked up, like, ha ha ha! If only you knew. And there was an almost identical exchange with His Holiness the Dalai Lama in a conference in Southern California a few years ago, where a person from the audience asked the same question, and then His Holiness said, please excuse me if this is impolite, but have you committed some terrible crime? Have you been guilty of murder, or were you in the war where you killed lots of people, or and this was the fellow said, oh no, I'm a very good person, I just hate myself. And then again His Holiness turned to his translation, what's this about? And his translator, who was a PhD student at Cambridge University, tried to explain, and His Holiness kind of gave the same answer. It's like, what he actually said, this is most unfortunate. So it's really important to distinguish between the feeling of honor and responsibility and the feeling of guilt. And I know these words can be used sort of interchangeably. You could swap one for the other, but they're really, really different things. So guilt always has the feeling of atta, of self, of I and me and mine, tuton. So physical pain, we can see it hurts. That's good. It's useful because it protects us. So hiri is exactly the same. So when we make a mistake and we feel, oh, that was really awful, I shouldn't have done that, then if we're wise, then we take that simple feeling of emotional pain and we say, okay, now can I let this be felt without building a whole atta, an I, me and mine around it? So if that can be done, then the pain is useful. And that's why it's called the lokapala. It protects the world. It protects your world. It helps you to say, not do the same thing again. Okay, if I don't want to feel this painful feeling, next time, don't tell the lie. Next time, don't cheat when you're doing the petty cash accounts at work. Don't say horrible things about the teachers behind their backs. Not that anybody would, but that way it really protects us. The hiri is what is, say, helping us to guide our life in a way which is responsible and which is, say, based on compassion and kindness. So the other quality, the other lokapala, ottappa, people talk about it in different ways, but I like to think of it as, whereas hiri is talking about yourself, ottappa is, say, how you're responding to the outside world. So if you're in the market and you see somebody, say, hurting their child, that somebody has their child, whacks the child round the head and shouts at them, then that in you which pulls back and says, oh, that is seeing cruelty or unkindness, then that is ottappa. That is the sense of withdrawing, pulling away from what is unwholesome, what is cruel, or what is unkind, what is dishonest. Or when somebody at work, somebody else at work is acting in a dishonest way or an abusive way, that in you which says, I really don't want to have my coffee break with them. And you choose to step away from the people who are swearing or who are flirting or who are kind of criticizing and gossiping and blaming each other. That which says, no thanks, and steps away. Not because you hate them or not because you have your own kind of pride, but just, I choose not to be around that which is unwholesome. So that's ottappa, is also a protection. It helps us to keep away from situations, from people that are harmful, and also helps to be a kind of a way of sustaining a wholesome and balanced environment for ourselves and those who are closest to us. So along with making mistakes, then in recognizing this, part of the chemistry of this, which I think is also useful, is forgiveness. Apai in Thai language, apai. Now it's very interesting how that works, because the Thai word apai, which means forgiveness, comes from the Pali word abhaya, like the monastery in California, Abhayagiri, which means fearlessness. Bhaya is fear, Abhaya is fearless. So sometimes people wonder, no, they think that the monastery in California is called Forgiveness Mountain, not Fearless Mountain. But, so it's interesting to consider how come the word for fearless became the meaning of forgiveness. Well, there's this principle that the Buddha spoke about called abhayadana, the giving of fearlessness. So when you live in a responsible way, when you live in a way that's kind and compassionate, then other beings don't need to be afraid of you. You forgive them. You're not carrying around any negativity towards them. You're not being aggressive or unkind or selfish. They don't need to be afraid of you. So that's a kind of generosity. You're forgiving. You're not carrying around any negativity. So then people are not afraid to be near you. If people know that you're always angry and critical and blaming, they don't want to be around you. So the art of forgiveness is a very important aspect of making mistakes. First of all, forgiving yourself. To be ready to recognize, yes, that was a stupid thing that I did, but I now recognize that, and I'm going to do the best that I can to improve my conduct. So forgiving yourself for not being perfect, for not being a pra-arahant. And this is very important. Again, it's not just a Western conditioning, but I think it's all around the world, that oftentimes we criticize ourselves and we criticize other people because we expect them to behave like arahants. But in Buddhist psychology, only the arahants are completely sane. Everyone else is, if you're not an arahant, then you're at various degrees of craziness. I'm not trying to be insulting, we're all in this together. So, if you expect everyone to be an enlightened being, and then that you find out that they've stolen something or they've cheated, a politician has said something to the public that wasn't true, then if they were an arahant, you'd be justified in feeling upset. Like, well, that's outrageous. They're a fully enlightened being, they shouldn't do that. But if you realize, oh no, she's crazy. This is the psychiatric ward. Then these are my fellow patients on the psych ward. Well, of course, she gets a few things wrong, and of course, he kind of stands up in a soapbox and pronounces things to the world that are not true. He's crazy. You can't. You're not saying that you like it or you think it's good, but you find yourself much more forgiving if you realize, well, these people are not totally sane. They are. So it's not you're not supporting people being irresponsible, but it makes a bit more space in your heart, because often we judge people by expecting them to be absolutely perfect, kind, compassionate, honest, thoughtful, all the time. But if you think, well, actually, he's crazy, she's crazy, and then it changes the way you look at the world. So you find yourself much more forgiving of yourself. Well, I'm on the psych ward. I'm allowed to make a few mistakes. Or these people are crazy as well. I should give a bit more space to their behaviour. So I'm not trying to say that we shouldn't correct conduct that is really unskillful or in ourselves or others, but the way that we hold those judgments is up to us. And I find that when I remember that and I make more room for the way I see other people, then particularly politicians, it's very they come across like they're absolutely perfect, fair, clear-minded, have only got the public good in their hearts, and then you realise this is total lies. This is complete fraud. It's just this person is on a huge ego trip. They just want to have me elected. That's the main program. You think, well, poor guy. He's completely stuck on his ego mania. rather than getting upset because he doesn't have the public interest fully in his heart, you said you find a sense of maybe a little bit of compassion. Poor guy, he's really lost. So forgiveness then is that we have ceremonies that we carry out in the monastery. When say at the end of a retreat time, when people have been gathered together at the end of the Pansa, the rainy season retreat, or just now I was leading a little retreat up in Merim. At the end of the retreat, then people gather together and they say to the senior person, whatever we have done, intentionally or unintentionally, whether there's Chaitana or no Chaitana, by body, speech or mind that has been offensive or upsetting, I ask for your forgiveness. And then the senior person says, I forgive you and please forgive me also. So this is a very important principle that even though you might be the most senior person there, you might be the elder or the teacher or the head of the school or the abbot of the monastery, even if you have the reputation of someone being an arahant, they would say, I forgive you, please forgive me also. Because, like I said, even the Buddha recognized he could say things and do things that were painful or upsetting to people. Not everybody liked the Buddha or approved of everything that he said, not at all. And so that I feel that's a very useful process to say, ask for forgiveness for yourself, and to even if there's criticisms or negativity that you're still carrying around, when they say you have anger towards the teacher, you think they've treated your child badly, or that they're really incompetent, or that there's things that they do that you really don't approve of. When they say, I forgive you, please forgive me too, maybe there's something in your heart that says, well, for some things, yes, but there's this one thing, I'm not going to forgive you because that was really bad and awful, and you did that wrong. When you carry out this kind of ceremony, you can at least notice that thing that you're still carrying around, that you still want to hold on to, that you haven't quite let go of. So at least at that moment oh look, I don't want to drop that one. That's a grudge that I want to keep that. And at that moment you can be aware of what it's like to carry around that kind of negativity. Yeah, I'm choosing to carry around this opinion, this criticism, this negativity. Okay, I'm free to do that. How does it feel? Oh. So you know that you should let go, but at that moment you're not able to. And sometimes things in our lives, our ex-partners or our parents or our siblings or people that have hurt us or betrayed us or upset us, something in us doesn't want to forgive. But a very useful principle that Luang Por Chah used to say is 50 or 70% of the practice of Dhamma is knowing that you should let go and not being able to. Chiang Mai? So 50 to 70, you should let go, but you can't let go yet. But at least you can't let go. Because the one who's doing the clinging works for a different company than the one who's letting go. They're different departments. One is speaking English, the other is speaking Thai. One is a Mac, the other one is a PC. They're different chemistry, and so they don't always work together perfectly. But at least I'm not going to let that go yet. I can't quite. I know I should. I know this is crazy, but I can't let that go. And so at least that you're hanging on. So when we make mistakes, or we know that something is foolish, then that forgiveness is, you're not pretending that it wasn't a mistake. Or if it's forgiving somebody else, it's not pretending that their actions weren't harmful. You may be someone in your family or someone in the government has acted in a way that's really destructive and causes great pain and difficulty for many people. You're not saying, oh, it doesn't matter, my penrai. Penrai, it matters, it's important. But you are finding that place in your heart where you are not creating negativity about that. Doesn't mean that you don't do anything, but it means that you choose not to hate. You don't make them into the enemy, or you don't say close your heart to that person, but rather you have metta karuna, loving kindness, compassion, and then you think, okay. So we use our panya. This is Panyaden, the place of wisdom, the den of panya. In the part of England where I grew up, the word den is at the end of lots of village names. Tenterdden, Biddenden, Rolvenden, Frittenden, and it means the forest. So Panyaden is the forest of wisdom, at least in my local Kentish language. So that this is a place of panya. So then we are ready to forgive the mistakes of ourselves and forgive them of others. But it doesn't mean to say that forgiving means, okay, don't do anything. It means we have no aversion, we let go of the hatred, but we have to use our panya, our kwamchala, our intelligence to find a way through where our perspective and our understanding can maybe help situations move to a better way for everybody, and to support our own lives and the lives of others. So maybe the last thing to say before we open things up for some questions is, those of us who remember our science lessons, it's probably the same in Thailand as it is in England, that almost first thing in the chemistry class is the teacher saying there's no such thing as a failed experiment. That when you make an experiment in the science class, even if it doesn't work, the fact that it doesn't work still teaches you something. So there's no such thing as a failed experiment. So similarly, a mistake, what we call a mistake, we can think of it as something unfortunate or bad or a problem, but if we're wise, then every mistake will be an ajahn for us. It'll teach us. So there's no such thing as a mistake that is, 100% harmful or 100% of a problem. Even very painful and destructive things, we can learn important lessons from those. So that if we are wise, if we use our skillful thinking and understanding, we'll be able to turn the energy of a problem or a crisis or a mistake. We steer the energy towards awakening. We use that the energy of that conflict or that difficulty to help our minds to awaken, and that benefits us and it benefits everybody. So I offer these thoughts for consideration this morning, and we have about half an hour for some Santanadham discussion.
Namaste. Is confrontation a part of the path to forgiveness? Or is confrontation a non-Buddhist concept?
It's a good question. When we use the word confrontation, that can be handled in a couple of different ways. There was a famous incident in the time of the Buddha where there was a dispute over water rights to the Rohini River. I think it was the Sakyans and the Kolyans, that the river Rohini ran between the two countries, between Sakya and the Sakya country and Kolya, and there was a drought, and so that the water in the river was very low, and so then I think the Kolyans had diverted the whole river into their territory. So then the Sakyans said, hey, wait a minute, it's our river too. So the Buddha went and intervened. So he arrived and went and so took a position between the two armies. So, would you call that confrontation? Yeah, I'm not sure, but he certainly made his presence known, and he drew their attention to him, and so that he was, say, trying to avoid the bloodshed and conflict that would come from the two armies fighting each other over the water. So there's a confrontation there. Similarly, another story from the Buddha where Prince Vidudabha was the son of King Pasenadi, and he had been he thought he'd been born from a mother who was a Sakyan princess, but it turned out that his mother was actually a Sakyan servant girl. That the Sakyans had said, well, we don't want to send a real princess to Magadha, and so we'll just we'll dress up a servant girl, put some jewelry on her, and send her off, and she can get married to King Pasenadi. So Prince Vidudabha was born as a servant girl, and he didn't find that out till he was about 16, and he was very annoyed. So he swore vengeance on the Sakyans, and according to the stories, that as his army was trying to enter Sakya, the Buddha was sitting beside the road and stopped him, confronted him, 3 times to bring to his attention the negative, destructive nature of what he was going to do, and was it really worthwhile? And so 3 times Vidudabha turned back, but then on the 4th time he came through and he massacred the Sakyan people. So there are these incidents where the Buddha was quite happy to step up and stand in front of an army and say, no, stop, think about it, don't do this, this is a big mistake. And so that kind of confrontation, coming from the Buddha, he's opposing something. He's opposing these the warlike tendencies in people. He sees that when the blood is up, then people can do crazy and destructive things. And he's saying, wait a minute, stop, think. Do you want to listen to me? Are you listening to me? And then he would try to the point where he would make as much input as he could, but then say, like with Vidudabha, after the 3rd time, then the prince wasn't going to listen to him anymore and just plowed on through. And so he massacred the Sakyans, but then, as they say, after the massacre was over, then Vidudabha, according to the stories anyway, that after they were leaving the Sakyan country, they camped out in what they thought was a dry riverbed, but then during the night there was a flood, and Vidudabha and his whole army were washed away as well. It's another story. But confrontation can be that we have anger in our heart. We say, no, you shouldn't be that way, and we are righteously indignant. And so confrontation is based on dosa and anger. That's always going to cause more pain. But like in these instances, when the Buddha confronted the Sakyan army and the Kolian army chieftains, they backed off and they worked out an agreement where they shared the water. And they found actually there was enough for both of them. If they divided the water, they kind of took it in turns for the water to be steered into their countries. So in that instance, the Buddha was able, through confronting them, to come to an agreement. With Vidudabha, he wasn't able to. So sometimes that kind of civil disobedience, if you like, or the non-violent protest like Mahatma Gandhi, that sometimes it can be strong enough or it can be effective enough to move a situation towards a good result. Sometimes it's not enough. It's not strong enough. I would say that if you are in a situation that seems to call for confrontation, that you need to consider very carefully, first of all, what's in my heart? What's my intention? Do I want to punish them? Do I hate them? Do I call them bad or evil? What do I want to do? Do I want to create more trouble, or do I want to bring this to a good conclusion? So knowing our own intention is the first thing. And then if you see that your intention is destructive and hate-filled, it's like, no, I want them punished, or I want them stopped at any cost. Whatever it takes, they have to be stopped. And if you see that your intention is full of negativity, dosa, then that's best to wait, to consider carefully. And when I say hatred, it doesn't mean that you have to like the other, or pretend that the bitter is sweet, but rather you are choosing not to create them as evil or as hated. Not liking something is not the same as hating. I don't know how you'd phrase that in Thai, but it's mi klod, my mungan, my chaw. So you could not like something like my chaw. Completely honestly, like someone is cutting down all the trees, or someone is running a corrupt government. You can't say, "Oh, chop, I'll be up. Please cut down more trees. Carry him, give more bribes." Fine. You're still saying my chop, but you're not getting angry, or you're not creating hatred. Patika in Pali, or the quality of dosa. So that when we want to carry out a confrontation, civil disobedience, I think, is a very good thing. People getting out onto the street, or coming to the authorities and saying, "We don't like this." If the intention is good, and the motivation has a wholesome aim, then fine to step up and say, "We don't agree." But I'd say the most important thing is to refuse to hate. And many years ago in California, there was a protest to protect a little redwood forest. This small local lumber company called Pacific Lumber had been bought up by a big corporation in Texas. And the Texas corporation, Maxim Corporation, decided they were going to clear cut the whole thousands and thousands of acres. Some of it old growth, kind of original growth trees. And Earth First is an environmental protection organization. They launched a campaign to protect the forest. And so they moved into the area, and there was a number of people they asked to climb up the trees and camp out in the trees. Big redwood trees. And this one young woman called Julia Butterfly said, "Okay, I'll go up a tree." But and then she ended up becoming a kind of local heroine, because she stayed up in this tree for 2 years without coming down. So she ate up there, she bathed up there, everything. She didn't touch the ground for 2 years, like 200 or 300 feet up in a redwood tree. And this is on the Pacific coast, so you've got big storms coming in off the Pacific. And so she became a kind of local heroine. And then after a certain time, Earth First authorities thought, "Hey, she's getting really famous, we need to get more mileage out of this." So they tried to get Julia to speak up and kind of preach hatred for Maxim Corporation and the head, this guy called Hurwitz, who's the head of the corporation. She said, no, if I encourage people to hate Hurwitz, there's no point in me being up in this tree. That defeats the object of the exercise. And then the Earth First authorities said, no, you don't understand. No, we need to hate this guy. We need to encourage hatred. And she said, no. If the tree's taught me anything, it's taught me that hatred is always going to make more problems. So the Earth First authorities got upset with her, but she still wouldn't come down. She said, "I'm not coming down until we get an agreement with the Maxim Corporation to protect the forest, to protect this tree." She's like standing on a branch on the tree, not holding on, no hands. I mean, about 200 or 300 people gathered around her on the hillside, and they're having a kind of 6 months up in the tree party, and she's dancing with not holding on a branch, like 200 or 300 feet up. She was not a kind of fearless warrior type before she started, but she won because she refused to hate, and so that was what caused the company to come around eventually was that they couldn't create a fight. But she said, no, there's no fight, and I'm not coming down. And eventually they signed, and they protected the tree and the area all around it. And there's a wonderful photograph of Julia Butterfly and Mr. Hurwitz meeting each other, and he's got this suit and tie, and she's this kind of hippie chick, you know, fresh out of the trees. And he's got this really interesting expression on his face, like, I don't know what this is, but I kind of like it. And she's reaching out and touching his heart, and he's like, this is kind of weird, but okay. So confrontation, there's different shades to it. So that kind of confrontation, I say, is very appropriate. So, another question. I'm not very good at short answers.
Okay, Namaskar, Tanaja. These two questions, I think, I'll ask together, I think, if I may, very similar. We have buffers, and in brackets, deep attitudes or beliefs that make us justify or avoid our recognition of mistakes. Do you have a way to discover or deal with these attitudes within ourselves? The second question is, how do you know when you're ready to let go and forgive?
Well, very good questions. We speak in Buddhist psychology of the three roots of the unwholesome: greed, hatred, delusion, raga, dosa, moha. And the greed, hatred, delusion are the sort of roots of the unwholesome. Greed and hatred are really easy to see. Right? They're pretty visible. Greed and hatred, they're sort of highlighted, tangible. But delusion is really hard to see. So those kind of buffers, like the really good reasons why I'm attached to this, the really good reasons why I have an opinion about against that. And this is one of the areas where more panya is not helpful. Sometimes worldly panya, intelligence, can be a big problem. It's like having a really, really good lawyer to help you out of something that some kind of illegal activity that you've actually carried out. The lawyer is really good, so the lawyer is paid to make a really good case, even though what you did was illegal. So sometimes more intelligence is not helpful because it creates a more sort of substantial buffer. It makes it harder to see that, well, actually, you just hate that person. Well, actually, you're really just an egotist, and you want to justify being inflated. That's all you want, really. But you come up with good, really good set of reasons why you want things to be that way. So, what I usually say with respect to this is where your spiritual friends come in. Kalyana Mitta, this is where your friends come in and say, do you realize how attached you are to the idea of being popular or being famous? Do you realize how you're obsessively worried about such and such, or that negative opinion you have about this person or that institution? Isn't that painful to you? So, because delusion, moha, because you're deluded, it's very hard to see it. Greed and hatred, there's effects. Greed, you're greedy for things, you have a lot of possessions. Greedy for food, you end up kayai. So that it's visible. Hatred, you can see the conflict and friction between you and others. But moha, it's very hard to see. It's like the fog or the mist. You can't see clearly. So this is where your friends can be a great assistance to you. So that drawing upon your spiritual friends, being ready to listen to them, or even better, ready to ask them, am I missing something here? is there something about what I'm doing, or can you see some way that I'm handling the family, or my work, or the school? Is there something I'm doing here that's causing trouble? Because whatever it is, I'm not seeing it, but I've got a feeling there's things are out of balance here. Now, can you help? And 9 times out of 10, our friends will be able to say, well, actually, now you come to mention it, since you're asking. So this is one of the reasons why the Buddha said that the whole of the holy life is spiritual friendship. He said to Ananda, spiritual friendship is not half of the holy life, it's the whole of the holy life. And the second part of the question was...
when do you know when you're ready to let go and forgive?
Well, that's where Panya is really useful. Because it's that kind of a different kind of Panya, not just the Panya of intelligence, but the Panya of self-reflectiveness, where you look within yourself and you are able to explore your own inner feeling. Like, why am I carrying this around? This is really stressful. This is really difficult. Do I really need to carry this around? Why do I do this to myself? And when you're ready to look and ask those kind of questions in a very straightforward and unbiased way, then that's when you're able to see most clearly when there's a readiness to let go, or when there's I'm not going to drop this one yet. And at least you can have compassion for yourself, having to hang on to that opinion, you need to hang on to that resentment, and that it's through that what they call wise reflection, or in Pali yoniso manasikara, that's looking and exploring, that we can map our own inner life. And usually when we let go of things in a complete way, it's not really me letting go. It just sort of falls off on its own. It's like something says, like a leaf dropping off a tree in the season. It's just, the leaf doesn't say, the tree isn't saying, let go, let go, let go. It's just the leaf reaches its season, and the stalk separates off from the trunk and it drops off. So in the same way, it's through our own bringing attention, that the quality of vijja, awareness, to that point of clinging. You bring the attention to that point of clinging over and over and over, and then things just fall away on their own. But sometimes it takes a lot of that, of bringing attention to it. But when we do, then, and if we are patient, then things just fall away. And so rather than, I've now let that go, it's just, I'm not interested in that anymore. It just doesn't, my mind doesn't move that way. But before it actually falls off or falls away, I feel it's most helpful to in a sense feed that hiriyottapa. When you see the mind hanging on to an obsession or a fear or an aversion, a jealousy, just to as simply and as directly, as coolly as possible, let yourself feel that. Like if you're really jealous of someone, like, I want that too. What about me? I deserve that, not her. And if you just let yourself feel that, or also you can use that kind of spelling out, like you do with the children, go kai, or letter by letter, like you can spell it out to yourself, like, I want one too. What about me? That's not fair. Or, I hate you. If you didn't exist, I'd be happy. And when you do that, when you spell out those kind of attachments, I find you can't get to the end of the sentence before it falls apart. Like, once you get it front center and you look at it, like, I want to be praised like Narindo, they like him, they don't like me. I want to be liked like that as well. You know, you can't keep a straight face. It's ridiculous. Because he's thinking the same thing. I want to be praised like him. You know, I don't want to be the junior monk. That's where very simply and directly looking at those attitudes is very, very helpful. I do a lot of this kind of thing.